sweet summer children. I'm back with some juice to get you through the long night. I haven't said that in a while and it feels good. In Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire, there is some common misconceptions when it comes to specifics or just general beliefs about the story. So I decided we should straighten it out, hammer it out, and nail down the top 5 misconceptions in Game of Thrones. And hopefully we can straighten them out, put them into perspective. It's easy to see how some of these things could get confused, but without further ado, let's get started. Number 1. Are Targaryens immune to fire? I see this in my comment section a lot, that Targaryens are immune to fire, but that is most definitely not the case. A lot of people believe this because Daenerys walks into Drogo's funeral pyre to wake her dragons, and when the fire burned out, she was unhurt. She is only able to do this because she is working blood magic without really knowing what she's doing. George R.R. Martin has said himself that Targaryens are not immune to fire, and he referred to the birth of dragons as a miracle. Blood magic was in play, and that is how Daenerys survived the birth of dragons. But then the show kind of confused it more with the event with the calls and burning the calls. That whole event with the calls and the Dosh Khaleen confused things. It confused me, to be honest. Yes. So this event has not happened in the books, but it has been prophesied to happen. Daenerys sees imagery from this scene in the House of the Undying. She sees the gray-headed crones bowing before her. But this again was basically another blood magic ritual, blood magic sacrifice, fire and blood. Daenerys basically sacrificed the calls to become the stallion who mounts the world, the Call of Calls. All the magic in A Song of Ice and Fire is rooted in fire and blood. Valyrian magic is rooted in fire and blood. Melisandre's magic is rooted in fire and blood sacrifice, and the Children of the Forest, their magic is rooted in frozen fire, which is also known as dragonglass, and blood sacrifice. So when Daenerys exits the temple of the Dosh Khaleen unburnt, we see live men being burnt. That's blood and fire. Daenerys has just did some kind of blood magic ritual. I'm sure the context of this whole scene will be way more in-depth in the books. But we do have tons of examples of other Targaryens, even Daenerys herself, being burnt by fire. Viserys is killed by the molten gold that was heated by fire, and Daenerys says fire cannot kill a dragon, but she didn't really know what she's talking about. So Jon burns his hand while fighting the Whites at Castle Black. Both of these things happen in book 1. Jon burning his hand severely and Viserys dying from the fiery molten gold. But other Targaryens have died from fire. Duncan Targaryen and King Aegon both burned in the fires at Summerhall. During the Dance of Dragons, Rhaenys was burned so black they couldn't even identify her body, really. King Aegon II, he had burns all over his body. The burns didn't kill him, but he spent the rest of his life in pain. Actually, Daenerys sustained burns and blisters from the fighting pits of Meereen when she first rode Drogon. All the evidence in the author's own words point to Targaryens not being immune to fire, and in instances when people do seem to be immune to fire, it's more of a blood, magic, and miracle type of situation. Number 2, who sits on the Iron Throne actually matters. Who sits on the Iron Throne seems like it's important, or this story is about rightful heirs and rightful kings, line of succession, lords and ladies, and who will rule the 7 kingdoms. But I don't think that's what the story is about. The wars in Game of Thrones are a major conflict in the story, but the story has always been about the players never realizing the bigger picture. The political struggles, while they are in front of us, they are not what is important. There is only one war that matters.
If we don't put aside our enmities and band together, we will die. And then it doesn't matter whose skeleton sits on the Iron Throne.
All of the wars that we've seen so far leave Westeros unprepared for the real war. This has been foreshadowed heavily. Osha tells Bran in book 1 that Robb is marching the wrong way. He should be marching north, not south. Even before the war, Ned has the bigger picture told to him by the deserter of the Night's Watch, but Ned Stark never gives it a second thought and still goes south. The Night's Watch is forever asking for help, asking for aid. Help never comes. There are no men to send to the wall because everyone is fighting for the throne. The Night's Watch knows about the White Walkers. Qhorin Halfhand and Lord Commander Mormont know about the White Walkers. They know that Craster has been sacrificing his sons. But the Night's Watch chose to fight the wildlings instead of letting them through the wall to help defend it. Men they could have used to fight the Night King. The War of Five Kings destroyed armies and killed thousands of men. These armies and these men could have helped defeat the Night King. Crops were burned, civilians were killed. The Seven Kingdoms is in no way ready for this fight. They're not even ready for winter. And who sits on the Iron Throne does not matter. Imagine if none of this had ever happened. Imagine if the Night King had to face Daenerys' army, Ned Stark and the entire North, all 6 direwolves, Robert Baratheon and the forces of the Stormlands, House Tyrell and their army, the Wildlings, Tywin and the Lannister army, the River Lords, etc. Like, the Night King would be fucked. The War of Five Kings and every battle after it was a waste of time, and who sits on the Iron Throne doesn't matter, and it never did. The bigger picture was and is always the War for Dawn. Number 3, dragon riders must be Targaryen. This, in my opinion, is one of the biggest misconceptions of Game of Thrones. I do not think you have to be Targaryen to ride a dragon, and I think we have evidence of that. Big, clear evidence. And that's that Targaryens were not the first people to ride dragons. They were taught how to do this by Ashai. And Targaryens weren't the only family to ride dragons in Valyria. So then maybe we say, okay, you need Valyrian blood to ride a dragon. But then all of Westeros probably has a drop of Valyrian blood. We have further circumstantial evidence that you do not have to be a Targaryen or Valyrian to ride a dragon, and being Targaryen, Valyrian, or having Valyrian blood doesn't make a dragon accept you as a rider. And that evidence comes from the Dance of Dragons. Prince Jacaerys needed more dragon riders and more dragons, and it was those born of dragon seed that he turned, vowing that any man who could master a dragon would be granted lands, riches, and dubbed a knight. His sons would be ennobled, his daughters wed to lords, and he himself would have the honor of fighting beside the Prince of Dragonstone against the pretender, Aegon II Targaryen, and his treasonous supporters. Not all those who came forward in answer to the prince's call were seeds, nor even the sons or grandsons of seeds. A score of the queen's own household knights offered themselves as dragon riders, amongst them the Lord Commander of her Kingsguard, Sir Stephen Darkling, along with squires, scullions, sailors, men-at-arms, mummers, and 2 maids. So they wanted more dragon riders, and they proposed to the dragon seeds to try to tame these dragons. And we know that everybody that tried to tame the dragons were not dragon seeds, and they did not have a drop of dragon blood. So the first questionable parentage comes in with Vermithor. Vermithor, the old king's own dragon, bent his neck to a blacksmith's bastard, a towering man called Hugh the Hammer, or Hard Hugh. If Vermithor bent his neck for a blacksmith's bastard, then he can't be a Targaryen bastard, because he's a blacksmith's bastard. He can't be the son of some long-dead Targaryen king or some long-dead Targaryen nephew or cousin, because it says his father was a blacksmith. But let's talk about Sheepstealer. Sheepstealer proved easier to flesh out, but he remained a vicious, ill-tempered beast who killed more seeds than the 3 castle dragons together. One who hoped to tame him was Alan of Hull. Sheepstealer would have none of him. When he stumbled from the dragon's lair with his cloak of flame, only his brother's swift action saved his life. Sea Smoke drove the wild dragon off as Adam used his own cloak to beat out the flames. Alan Valerian would carry the scars of the encounter on his back and legs for the rest of his life. Now, Alan Valerian is of Valerian descent, but I don't know if Nettie is. Listen to Nettie's description. In the end, the brown dragon was brought to heel by the cunning and persistence of a small brown girl of 6 and 10 named Nettie, who delivered him a freshly slaughtered sheep every morning until Sheep Stealer learned to accept and expect her. She was black-haired, brown-eyed, brown-skinned, skinny, foul-mouthed, filthy, and fearless, and the first and last rider of the dragon, Sheep Stealer. Nettie doesn't match the description of a Valyrian. No purple eyes or silver hair, even though that alone wouldn't exclude her from being Targaryen or Valyrian. But she bonded with the dragon by bringing him sheep, and that's how she flew him and tamed him, and that's how he accepted her. So dragons accepted riders that are, at the very least, of very questionable parentage, and they didn't accept riders who we know for sure had Valyrian blood. So no, I don't think that you have to be a Targaryen to ride a dragon. I think we have suitable evidence that supports that. But what do you think? What are some big misconceptions in Game of Thrones that you've seen a lot of? As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone that supports me on Patreon. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please click that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and join the Sweet Summer family. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.